Well, now, aren't you glad you came this morning? What a great song. What a wonderful morning this is. We're glad to see you here at the Salvation Army on any Sunday, but especially today on Advisory Board Sunday. Once a year, the board, who work for us all year long, 6, sometimes 7 or 8 days a week, come to join and worship with us. Bob Burwell, we're glad to see you. Thank you for coming. You know, it was that old British sage and Salvationist William Shakespeare who talked about advisory boards when he said, "There is a tide in the affairs of men, which taken at the flood leads on to fortune." I want to tell you that tide was flowing for the Salvation Army about 100 years ago when the first Salvation Army officer, we owe a lot to him, a wise man, decided he needed help to carry out the program, the mission ministry of the Army in his town, and so he enlisted members of the community who could help him or her and her with that job. And so advisory boards came into being. It was a high tide. Evangeline Booth was the national commander. The San Francisco earthquake had just happened in 1906. And she told the community and the world, we'll spend every dollar the Army has to do that. She had to find some friends to help her raise all that money, didn't she? And the first advisory boards were born. When she took the Army into World War I, she had the wise council of board members, and so the board began. There are 1,000 reasons why we should have advisory boards. And I'll omit, in the interest of time, 997 of them. But there are 3 main reasons why I think boards are necessary and a wonderful support of the Army. Number 1, they tell the community who the Army is. Would you believe that most people out in the world don't know about the Army? Oh, they know us. They see, what's the first thing they see? The Christmas calendar. And sometimes they say to me, you have these trucks that ride around. We do. We do. But most of the members of our community don't know anything to speak of about the Army. And the board helps us do that. This board in Clearwater, tremendous board, one of the best boards I've ever been associated with. This board helps us tell. They get us speaking engagements at Rotary. They tell the Army and their friends, tell the community and their friends about the Army. This board, in particular in Clearwater, started, Carol, some years ago, advocating the use of public service announcements on Bright House on Channel 9. And we're still doing that. This board, Carol's Community Relations Committee, said, you ought to tell the Army story with 30-minute TV programs. And we wouldn't have done it without the support of this board. They tell the community who the Army is. Secondly, they tell the Army who the community is. Because officers, believe it or not, officers come and go in the Salvation Army. Someday. We don't want that to happen, but someday it will. I grew up in the Jacksonville Citadel Corps, a headquarters corps, and at every farewell meeting, the old retired commandant Metaxas would say, I've seen him come and I've seen him go. Praise God, from whom all blessings flow. I was never sure if he was praising God for the ones coming or going, but that happens to us in the Army. And what if we didn't have an advisory board locally who knew the community, who knew the needs? And so this board, this Clearwater board, helps tell the Army what the needs are. It helped us put a daycare center into place some years ago. And when that was no longer necessary, it helped us turn our eyes to transitional housing. We'll have 25 apartments down at Mallory Powell to help do that. It helped us decide that we needed a school of music to teach young people to play. I'll never forget at an advisory board meeting, Deidre was sitting right over here, and when the meeting was over, I said to Deidre, how'd you like it? She said, oh, the music was wonderful. The band was good. But Tom, what happens when old guys like you are gone? And I said, that's a very good question. And so we have a school of music where 45, 50, 60 young people are learning to play. Wonderful, wonderful asset to the Army, thanks to the interest of the advisory board. The board started a strategic plan to help the Army meet the needs of this community now and in the days to come. And Deidre's husband, Bruce Livingston, got involved in that. And today, Bruce, we have, do we not, a dental clinic, a community dental clinic. And your Salvation Army is part of the 3 organizations that sponsor that. It wouldn't have happened without the advisory board. And now we're starting food drops, taking food to neighborhoods of poverty so that people can be fed right in the neighborhood where they live. That was an advisory board idea. Thirdly, the board helps the Army find the resources to do all of these things. We couldn't do it without them. They help us find volunteers to ring the bell at the kettle. Betty Jo Andrews, sitting down there, helped us form a William Booth Society, which is still going and growing and finding major dollars for the Army. We have an advancement committee that is looking into meeting the strategic needs of the Army in the days to come. Don't you think this is a great board we have in Clearwater that moves our Army? And I'd ask them to stand now. Board members? When Yogi Berra, that old Yankee sage in Salvation, first made the Yankee team in 1947, he ran down to the clubhouse manager and said, I want one of those Yankee uniforms, I want those pants with the pinstripes and the shirt with the NY. And the last place he went was to the guy who was giving out caps, and he said, I want one of those Yankee caps. And the guy said, you got it, Yogi, what size do you wear? He said, 6 7/8. But it's early in the season. The Army's been in Clearwater since 1926, and we have done an awful lot of good things. But there's still room to grow. As long as we have this advisory board with us, this Army will grow. We owe a great deal to them. Thank you.